The year 1945 in Bayern Munich's history marks a period of significant transformation for the club as it emerged from the devastating effects of World War II and began the process of rebuilding. During this time, the club was still feeling the repercussions of the war, and Germany's football structure was undergoing substantial changes. However, this year also represented the first steps toward the club's future greatness, with a long journey ahead to achieve the global success it would later enjoy. The impact of World War II and Bayern Munich's situation, 1939 to 1945. Before World War II, Bayern Munich was already one of the most prominent clubs in Germany. However, during the war years, the importance of football had significantly diminished. Germany's football leagues were suspended, clubs faced severe financial challenges, and player rosters were drastically altered. In the final years of the war, Bayern Munich minimized its football activities, and some of the club's players either lost their lives or were conscripted into the military. During the war, Bayern Munich participated in only regional football competitions as the overall football structure in Germany had collapsed. The club's facilities were heavily damaged, and its stadiums and grounds were destroyed. Consequently, Bayern Munich entered a process of rebuilding in the post-war years. Post-war reconstruction, 1945 to 1947. With the end of the war, Germany entered a period of major reconstruction, and in 1945, football began to revive as part of this effort. Bayern Munich, like other clubs, began the process of rebuilding after the devastating effects of the war. Football once again became a unifying force in Germany, and Bayern Munich sought to be a part of that restoration. However, 1945 was not a year of great success for Bayern Munich. At the time, Germany's football leagues had not fully resumed, and there was no national league such as the Bundesliga. The country was still under occupation, and the football system was being restructured, with regional leagues being reestablished. In this context, Bayern Munich continued to compete in the local football scene in Germany. Bayern Munich's performance in regional leagues 1945 to 1947. In 1945, Bayern Munich continued to compete in the regional leagues of the Bavarian state. During this period, the club did not win championships, but it played an important role in helping revive football in the post-war years. The team faced significant challenges as it was struggling both financially and administratively. Additionally, many of the players who had been lost during the war had to be replaced, and the club needed to fill gaps in its squad. Post-1945, Bayern Munich focused on rebuilding its infrastructure and facilities while competing against local rivals in the regional leagues. During these years, the club took the first steps toward future greatness, laying the groundwork for the successes that would follow in the years to come. Reorganization of football and new structures, 1947 to 1950. In 1947, the football system in Germany began to be reorganized, and Bayern Munich began to expand its professional football efforts. In 1949, the Oberliga Süd, South German League, was established, and Bayern Munich became part of this league. Throughout the 1950s, the club improved its performance in the regional leagues and started to attract more attention. However, Bayern Munich had yet to secure any of Germany's top-tier championships during this time. Between 1945 and 1950, Bayern Munich worked on reorganizing its football structure, developing young talents, and improving both its sporting and financial capabilities. The club invested more in professionalization in its youth academy, aiming for a stronger and more competitive future. Bayern Munich's first successes and rise, 1950s. Bayern Munich's true breakthrough came in the late 1950s and particularly in the 1960s. The club continued to perform well in the Oberliga Süd and started winning more regional championships. During this time, Bayern Munich began to gain recognition on the European stage. However, the club's greatest rise would come in the 1970s when Bayern Munich started winning the European Cup, now known as the UEFA Champions League, establishing itself as one of the most powerful and successful clubs in the world. Conclusion: the importance of 1945. While 1945 was not a year of major success for Bayern Munich, it marked the beginning of the club's rebuilding process, a period of recovery from the war and the foundation for future achievements. In the years that followed, the club would overcome numerous challenges and eventually establish itself as a dominant force in both regional and international football. Bayern Munich's success would not materialize immediately, but the groundwork laid in the post-war years would lead to the club's later triumphs, both domestically and on the global stage. Detailed records of Bayern Munich's matches in 1945 are quite limited, as football during that period in Germany was disorganized due to the aftermath of World War II. Football activities had been interrupted during the war and the country was still recovering. However, I can provide an overview of Bayern Munich's football situation and the context in which they played during the immediate post-war years. 1945 and after, competing in regional leagues. After the end of World War II, football leagues in Germany began to be reorganized. With the war over, German football clubs began competing once again, but at the local and regional level initially. Bayern Munich, like many other clubs, continued to play in regional leagues, specifically in the Oberliga Süd, South German League. During this period, the matches were mainly regional and professional football was not yet fully organized in the country. Therefore, there aren't any major reports or championship wins involving Bayern Munich in 1945. Their performances during this time would not have been on the national or international stage. Post-war rebuilding and matches. In the aftermath of the war, Bayern Munich participated in local football competitions in Bavaria. The professional football league system in Germany had not been fully reinstated, and as a result, Bayern Munich was primarily involved in regional matches. The competitive structure was still being reformed, and there were no significant victories or major matches recorded in 1945. Key matches and achievements. While Bayern Munich did not experience notable victories in 1945, the club's rebuilding process in the subsequent years would lead to major successes. The club's real rise to prominence came in the 1950s and 1960s. The period starting in 1945 was crucial for the formation of a team that would eventually become a global football powerhouse. General overview. Post-1945 matches. After 1945, Bayern Munich mainly participated in local leagues in Bavaria. These matches were part of the club's early steps toward rebuilding after the war, as the larger football structure in Germany had yet to be fully restored. Oberliga Süd. In 1949, Bayern Munich began competing in the Oberliga Süd, which was the top regional league. During this period, the club started performing well in regional competitions, but major victories on the national or international stage were still out of reach. Match records. There are no detailed match reports for Bayern Munich's games in 1945, but the focus during this time was primarily on re-establishing the club's infrastructure and laying the foundation for future success. In conclusion, Bayern Munich's matches in 1945 were mostly at the regional level, and the club did not achieve significant victories that year. However, the post-war period marked the beginning of a crucial rebuilding phase that would eventually lead to the club's rise as one of Europe's most successful teams in the decades to come.